The NBA unicorn. As we all know, that term at one point was thrown around at every tall prospect that was able to dribble, make plays for themselves, be able to shoot, and be able to block shots, which in today's NBA meta is a highly sought after skill set for 7-footers. But as more and more NBA prospects that come into the league with that tag flame out or just not live up to that potential, that label has not been used as much on incoming rookies anymore. Until now, because with the 7'4" Victor Wenbemyama from France coming into the league next year, and even being as touted as a better incoming prospect than LeBron James got out of high school according to some, he is now reviving that word that some people have been trying to get out of people's mouths. A NBA unicorn, and the tallest and longest no homo of his kind also. So it made me think. I made a video last year on why the NBA unicorn label is the most overrated label in the NBA, but I think it's time to go a step further. Let's review every NBA unicorn that has been drafted into the NBA to point out why that archetype of player has been demonized the way it is now before Victor Wenbemyama officially becomes the NBA player. And just like last video, this will be a long one, so strap in and enjoy the show. And you already know what I have to say. You already know who it is. Roll it! But before we start this video, a fun fact. Did you know that the average male testosterone in 2022 is 22% less than where it was in the 1990s? With that, it can cause increased body fat, decreased muscle mass, lower metabolism, and other side effects like that that can potentially hinder your sports performance or just your everyday life as a man. Well, if you'd like to know where you can get that checked at your age, then let me introduce you to today's video sponsor, Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is a worldwide leader in home health tests, and with their male hormone test and home sampling collection, it has never been easier to check your testosterone levels without going to the doctor's office. And after a sample is taken, your results we sent through a secure account so you and only you will be able to know your health status. In this current health climate that we are in, everyone is taking it very seriously, and you should too by checking to see where you are with your T to avoid the many side effects of low testosterone in men, like erectile dysfunction, a low libido, and less lean muscle mass. If you'd like to know how you are with your testosterone, to check out my link at trylgc.com/Alvini in the description or pinned comment, or use my code Alvini25 at checkout for a 25% discount on your order and to support the channel. Thank you again to Let's Get Checked for sponsoring the video, and let's get back into it.
With the 4th pick in the 2015 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis from Liepaja, Latvia. He last played for Sevilla.
Drafted at the 4th spot of the 2015 NBA draft, Kristaps Porzingis was an interesting prospect coming out of Latvia due to his listed 7'2" height and 7'6" wingspan, and being able to put the ball in the court and make his own plays and other aspects about his game. But as an overseas prospect, many people had a lot of questions and concerns about his game. How would he be able to match up against NBA talent? Would he be able to bulk up with his really skinny frame? And is his game even sustainable at the NBA level? So many concerns for a polarizing talent at that time. When you factor in his weaker aspects in other realms of the sport, only grabbing 3 rebounds in 21 minutes in his last overseas sports team last year, the questions just kept pouring in. And then it happened. He was drafted to the New York Knicks at the 4th pick, and Knicks fans were not happy.
I know it. 2015 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis.
Oh my God! Oh my God! What is wrong with them? Why? We did it again!
What the fuck did they do? Who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is Tingus Pingus? I never heard of fucking Latvia! You drafted this fucking kid! You stupid mother!
Knicks fans were at the Barclays Center booing because we recognize that we have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived by Phil Jackson and the New York Knicks. That is the situation. That is what is going on, and that is why I stand here on my vacation, blissfully happy.
And like I said, we all know why. European prospects, unlike nowadays, were not as respected for many reasons, unlike the more automatic guys coming in from college 9 times out of 10. Okay, more like 7 times out of 10. Especially the person who was picked at the #1 spot in Karl Anthony Towns, who turned out to be the all-around player himself and not Kristaps. But for Kristaps, he proved the jeering crowds in New York wrong by showing the fans that he is NBA ready. A lot of those concerns that Knicks fans and media alike had for him started to slowly be turned into endearing qualities about him.
Kristaps Porzingis has another big night for the Knicks. 29 points and 11 boards in a win over the Hornets. Stephen A., what is your reaction to all this sing love in your city?
I got to admit, I'm stunned. He deserves it. I like the promise. Phil Jackson looks like he did well with this pick. I'm actually going to go to the Knicks game. I'm going to end my...
Are you?
Yeah.
Porzingis can not only play for years, but he is so good that he will be, I believe at this point, the player about whom GMs during their meetings with their teams in the offseason, every offseason in the Eastern Conference, are going to have to say, what are we going to do about Porzingis?
Kristaps Porzingis was everywhere. By the end of the night, he'd become the only player in NBA history to ever notch at least 35 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 5 three-pointers in a single game. It's a stat line that underlines all of KP's unicorny goodness, his versatility, and his singularity. And while Lonzo had actually a pretty impressive night of his own, Knicks fans finished the overtime game doing something crazy. Actually cheering for their own team.
Playing alongside Carmelo Anthony, he put up 14.7 rebounds and 2 blocks a game as a rookie, with many Showtime highlights playing at Madison Square Garden, showing his array of skills that made him an exciting prospect in the first place that everybody was waiting to see if he would actually pan out or just be another European bust. And then being in New York, it was not going to end up very well for him if he was a bust. Going out there with his frame, shooting from anywhere he wanted to, blocking impossible shots with his very long wingspan, posting up and working some of the best paint defenders in the league only as a 19-year-old center, and then being able to create his own shot like a guard immediately showed that Kristaps had star written all over him. Many of those qualities are reasons that people are foaming at the mouth about getting a chance to have Victor Wenbemyama in this upcoming draft. But Kristaps showed star potential, and for the next 2 years after that, capitalized in his situation, averaging a career best 22 points in his 3rd season in the league while being named a first-time All-Star that same year. But one concern that people had that year was the fact that even though he was putting up these numbers, the efficiency wasn't looking the best, which would be a precedent for the future of his career. Unfortunately, though, after that All-Star bid, he would face injury sustaining an ACL injury during the Milwaukee Bucks in a game after some time, and then face controversy speaking about his situation in New York and asked for a trade that caused him to be traded to the Dallas Mavericks. But before we talk about that eventual stagnant state of Porzingis we know now, people expected a lot from him with his eventual duo with Luka Doncic. 2 European guys who were both perceived to be superstars and could coexist together with their skill sets. A tall center that knew how to space the court and an all-around great guard. But the opposite happened as Kristaps year after year looked less and less impressive as a player. In his 2.5 years in Dallas, his shot regressed, coming in as an above-average shooter and leaving shooting 28% on threes last year, slowly regressing on his aggression when it came to rebound, to the point to where he was being out-rebounded by the 5'11" Facundo Campazzo, and finally his health regressing more and more each year. His time in Dallas had once again ended in controversy, being traded for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, 2 huge contracts to trade Porzingis, but funny enough, they were better fits for Luka at the end of the day. So now in current day, we see Porzingis trying to revive his career with a new duo partner in Bradley Beal, and already, with the little we've seen of him on the Wizards, he looked better after the trade deadline. But overall, his play has been pretty consistent as an NBA player. But in his skill sets, he has regressed from what he was coming into the league, being mainly a catch and shoot threat and not doing much with the ball in his hands anymore like he used to in New York. It may not look that way from the stats, but if you watch Porzingis game by game, he doesn't cause much of a problem for teams with the ball in his hands unless he's right by the rim or shooting over smaller players. He is only 27 years old, so he is still in his prime, but seeing how he is nowadays, he basically turned himself into one of the better stretch bigs in the league rather than what people expected from him in his earlier years.
With the 4th pick in the 2016 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Dragan Bender from Croatia. He last played for Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Next, drafted in the 2016 NBA draft with the 4th pick, the Suns pick up the Croatian sensation Dragan Bender, who in retrospect was boosted in the stock due to the rookie season of Kristaps Porzingis. And with the Suns just coming off a harsh decline in record throughout the years, a young maybe in Bender was something the organization could go with to tap into that potential to get another Kristaps in the NBA, except slightly shorter and slightly longer. No homo, of course. But again, in retrospect, the Suns kind of screwed themselves from the absolute beginning. Kristaps was actually playing in a pro team before coming to the NBA that showed what he could become. But for Dragan, he didn't even play all that much in his professional career, only playing in 14 minutes a game for 28 games and having nothing to really show for it. So the Suns basically had a shot in the dark moment drafting him this high. And looking into it, a lot of articles actually had him going this high just off of that alone. Potential. But as we all know, due to that lack of experience, we rarely see any of those types of players work out long term. But anyways, he was drafted 4th overall in that draft, and the same concerns, just like for Kristaps, showed up. Would he be able to compete at the NBA level, and would he be able to stay healthy with his frame? And the answer to both of those concerns, we all know, ended up being a no. In his entire NBA career, do you want to know what his major contributions was to the NBA teams that he has played on? Over half of his total shots he has ever taken in the NBA were 3-pointers. He was never able to even slightly tap into that potential that people had for him. And due to that, he just basically turned into a stretch big. And it's for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, he could never stay healthy. In his first 3 seasons, he only played 82 games once and missed almost half of his rookie and 3rd season games due to a plethora of injuries. And because of that, and other players either stepping up or coaches trying to preserve his body, he didn't become a mainstay in the rotation, only starting 64 games his entire time on the Suns. And of course, he had to compete for a starting spot over other lottery selection in the same year's draft, Marquise Chris. And reason number 2, the Suns in general was in total shambles during this time on the team, having to deal with a departure of Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight to already having a lot of people as rotation fighting to keep their spot or just being playing out better than him. Marquise Chris, TJ Warren, Mirza Teletovic, Tyson Chandler, Markieff Morris, and many, many more. And as we all know, being available is the best skill sometimes. So getting time to even develop was never going to happen unless he was being prioritized. And you'd expect the 4th overall pick of an NBA draft to be prioritized, and it didn't happen. And of course, reason number 3, a lot of teams make this mistake. He was never allowed at the bare minimum to play in the G League to develop. The G League nowadays has been a blessing for a lot of players in this current day NBA, being able to be prioritized and developed and then be found out as a diamond in the rough. Talk to the Miami Heat about that. They really know about how to find diamonds in the rough in the G League. But sometimes some franchises don't even use their G Leagues for its intended purpose. If Dragan was racking up DNPs and inconsistent time on the court, you'd rather as well put him down there to see what he can do as a number 1 option somewhere. But with all that going against him, the best he could rack up on the Suns was in his sophomore season, where he would put up 6 points a game as a primary starter and shooting 66 of his shots from 3 in that season. He was basically set up for failure, but at the same time, it was safe to say that he wasn't supposed to be drafted that high. So from there, we have what is basically the end of his NBA career. You still have his time with the Bucks and Warriors, but it came with very little success or even playing time by that matter. The most he has to show as an NBA player was his time in the G League with the Wisconsin Herd, putting up godly numbers, but at the age of 22 and only having 3 years of NBA experience, literally 3, he is now out of the NBA and playing currently in the Spanish ACB, putting up 17 points a game. Overall though, he was mainly a victim of circumstance, but at the same time, probably not good enough to play in the NBA in the first place.
With the 7th pick in the 2017 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Lauri Markkanen from Jyväskylä, Finland, and the University of Arizona.
Drafted with the 7th pick of the 2018 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves pick up the Finnish prospect in Lauri Markkanen. But as we all know, he was traded later alongside Zach LaVine to the Chicago Bulls. But he was mighty impressive at his time in college, averaging 15 points a game while flirting with a 50-40-90 shooting split. His main draw was his 3-level scoring potential and how effortless it was for him to shoot over people like you'd see from a Kevin Durant routinely. And of course, when you add in his skinny 7'5" frame and spurts of shot creation skills alongside his shooting ability, he was labeled as a unicorn coming into the NBA draft. And with teams salivating on what Lauri can become with some development time, and the Bulls took the bullet after the trade to make it happen. But I'm not gonna lie, that risk looked really worth it at the time. His rookie season was highly impressive, with someone of that label averaging 15 points with many great highlights to show exactly why scouts call him the next unicorn, especially when he became the fastest player to ever hit 100 threes in their NBA career, scoring 33 points against the Knicks on 8 made threes and many other things. Everything was looking up for Lauri in his career at that point. And in the second year, he improved those numbers to 18 points a game while being more aggressive on the rebounding efforts. But as we all know, the main hit for Lauri Markkanen was the firing of Fred Hoiberg and the coaching of his new coach, Jim Boylen. The Jim Boylen saga of the Chicago Bulls can be described in many ways, but since this video is not about a video specifically talking about him, I will only talk about how he affected the Lauri Markkanen experience. During Lauri's third season, Lauri was quoted to say, "I had 80 touches per game the last 2 seasons. This season, the touches dropped to 40. Don't get me wrong, I had some plays drawn with me in mind, but it's just different." When I spoke to Jim, we talked about how he could concentrate on getting rebounds and then leading the fast break, but it's just really hard getting 40 defensive rebounds. You see, when it came to Jim Boylen and other coaches who took over teams, they have their own systems and thoughts in mind when it comes to players. Lauri Markkanen with Fred Hoiberg had ample opportunities to get better and to keep shooting, basically just told to figure it out, and he did that. But with Boylen, he was awfully restrictive with him and tried to make him what he wasn't, a paint defender and a rebounder, while not prioritizing why he was drafted so high in the first place, his offensive versatility. And due to that, his averages fell down scoring wise, and he wasn't even improving at what Boylen wanted. So it's safe to say for those reasons that he absolutely was wasted when it came to his actual development. Then leads into his next chapter when he was in a sign and trade with Cleveland to start a new chapter there. And even then, he was now and again a mainly defensive system where he wasn't being prioritized offensively again. Oh, and he mainly played at the small forward position. Don't forget that weird piece of information that made them one of the tallest front courts in NBA history. But once again, he was mainly restricted to a shooter role, having over half his total shots being from behind the arc, and you could argue he was being used the wrong way, not having the perimeter skills to play at the 3 and not being able to play defense against other perimeter players. But at least he can get bailed out playing with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in the paint. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he played bad or didn't play well. He just wasn't being prioritized his potential, and again, just like our last 2 subjects, treated like a stretch big once again. But even with the decent season that he had, he was traded with Colin Sexton for Donovan Mitchell. But I think this will actually be a great thing for him. He gets to play with a young and first-year head coach in Will Hardy, where he could possibly tap into that potential where he was always expected to be at. And only at 25, he'll have plenty, and I mean plenty of time to do so, because that team is definitely going to lose a lot of games, especially with the veterans most likely being traded, opening up a lot of opportunities for him and potentially putting him in the most improved player conversation.
With the 44th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Bol Bol from Khartoum, Sudan, and the University of Oregon.
With the 44th pick of the 2019 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat pick up Bol Bol, who at one point was looked at as a top 5 prospect in the draft and the unicorn of his class, alongside being a homegrown American prospect, at that being followed throughout his high school career, dominating the scene with his 7-foot height and 7'8" wingspan. You can find many videos online of him taking people smaller and quicker than them off the dribble, many feats of shot creation skills, and being able to have his way with any threat that drives into his paint. And with him going to Oregon, he was able to keep showcasing that as one of their best players. Just look at some of these box scores: 32 points on 4 6 threes against Texas Southern, a 23-point, 12-rebound, 4-block game against Eastern Washington, and a 26-point, 3-steal, 4-block game against Syracuse. Every game he played in college was a national headline waiting to happen, as he was wowing the crowd, doing things that no 7-footer should be able to do, which showed why he was considered as a top 5 pick in the 2019 draft, alongside people like Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, John Morant, and whoever else you want to put in there. But as one of the main blowbacks for unicorns and other 7-footers are injury concerns. And from Bol Bol, that came to life when he was injured, when his foot ended up breaking in only his 9th game played in college that kept him out for the entire year and showed scouts why he was a potential injury concern if you drafted him a little bit too high, which made him fall all the way down to the 44th pick, where the Miami Heat drafted him and the Nuggets picked him up via trade, which honestly could have been one of the worst things that could have happened to him. For one, in 3 years of being on the Nuggets, he has only played in 53 games. And as you all know, I'm going to make the same points as I usually make for anyone in this predicament. With him never getting any playing time, you'd expect him to at least play in the G League to develop. But up until last season, Denver Nuggets didn't even have a G League affiliate. But at one point, he was allowed to play for the Chicago Bulls affiliate, but that only lasted 8 games. We only played 19 minutes a game. And from then, he just stayed on the Denver Nuggets bench, just waiting for the occasional opportunity to play garbage time minutes.
Starting his role this year, we have a lot of talented players, and nothing is going to be given to anybody. Bol's going to have to earn those minutes. He did a really nice job when he got an opportunity in the bubble. But just like I told our team the other day, last season was great. It was historic in nature, Western Conference Finals. None of that matters now. This is a brand new year. And same thing for Bol and everybody else. This is a new season, so Bol's going to have to earn any minutes that he gets, and that he has to do that in practice. So he's done a nice job in our first 2 practices. He'll get a chance to continue to show his ability to help us on both ends of the floor, and we'll see how it goes. But only 2 practices in, there's so many things that are still to be determined.
Now let's be real here. Playing on the Nuggets meant he was never going to get any playing time in the first place because of them competing for a championship. So younger players will not be played at all. It took them a good bit to even let Michael Porter Jr. be a primary starter on the team, but I can imagine that was due to his bad back. Bol Bol wasn't put in the best situation to start off in his NBA career, and it all started off because of his broken foot in college. At least now, he has a brand new opportunity to play on a very young, in their rebuild Orlando Magic team. In this preseason, with them playing 5 games, he ended up showing glimpses of why he was considered one of the next big players. But with their front court already being stacked with Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Bamba, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner, and others, it's safe to say that it'll be kind of tough for him to still get minutes over there. But knowing how their system works, everyone's going to get an opportunity, and that'll be the same thing for Bol Bol. But he better be glad he is off the Denver Nuggets, because he just stayed chilling on the bench till his rookie deal ends, and then another team would decide to pick him up and risk it with him, or at the worst case scenario, he wouldn't even be in the NBA at all. But best luck of him when it comes to getting his first legit chance in the NBA, and I'm sure there will be eyes all over waiting to see how good he will do.
With the 17th pick in the NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Aleksej Pokusevski from Novi Sad, Serbia.
Drafted at the 17th spot of the 2020 NBA draft class, the Minnesota Timberwolves selected Aleksej Pokusevski from Serbia. And once again, we are met with another long and lanky European, but in the case of Aleksej, he is super raw as a player and definitely drafted with potential in mind. And he went to the perfect situation in Oklahoma City after being traded, who is rebuilding. Well, okay, no, they're super rebuilding for that. But before coming to the NBA, he played in Greece for Olympiakos B team, putting up 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal in a blocking game. So the potential as an all-around 7-foot threat is there, and it's up to the OKC Thunder to make that happen. So far in this development, he has mostly been in the G League, going against some of college basketball's best and NBA veterans alike. But in that time down there, he's still awfully raw on a game-to-game basis. In his first season there, he put up 7.7 rebounds with 4 assists a game. But when you look deeper, you'll see an even weirder story, as in that year, he also shot 31% from the field, 27% from 3, and turned over the ball as much as he assisted the ball. Then it didn't get much better the next year, barely improving in some aspects. But the thing that people wanted to focus on is some of his best games in the NBA so far. And for example, his triple-double with 12 assists against the Suns, which everybody raved about, but you also got to see how he turned over the ball 6 times to get to that point. You also have to consider some of his worst games, like a game against Orlando, where he went 3 of 20 from the field and 1 of 10 from 3. I can agree that he can turn it around around and be a good and serviceable player on a team and in the NBA in general, but he is way too raw to be considered good at the moment. Even with their lack of height on that team last season, they were still reluctant to let him play at the 5 spot, as he primarily has been playing power forward minutes, probably due to his frame. But at least coming into this season, he will have every opportunity possible, as Chet Holmgren is injured for the foreseeable future, and once again, the Thunder did not pay for any height on the team. So this could be a perfect opportunity for him to actually get some real starter minutes if they actually want to see him develop in the NBA. As it seems right now, he is playing better in the NBA than it is in the G League, so I guess it kind of makes more sense to do that too. But when you have a prospect like that is oozing with potential all over him, you'd think they take advantage of that and let him play as much in the NBA as possible while they're in this current situation.
With the 3rd pick in the 2021 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Evan Mobley from the University of Southern California.
Drafted by the Cavaliers in the 2021 NBA Draft, Evan Mobley was regarded by scouts and basketball fans alike as someone with unicorn potential written all over him due to his diversified play set at the college level. At USC, he wowed scouts by basically doing literally everything all over the box score. Just take a listen to some of these stats and you'll understand. He had 10 games scoring over 20 points or more, grabbed 10 rebounds in 12 games. He was second in NCAA in total blocks with 95, only 2 away from first, and averaged 2.9 a game. Led his entire conference total points scored, 6th in the NCAA in total rebounds grabbed, and led the NCAA in win shares. He even showed the potential for a future jump shot and could distribute the ball comfortably. All of that while being 7 feet tall with a 7'4" wingspan that screamed unicorn for a lot of people. And weirdly enough, there were even some people comparing this kid to Kevin Durant. I'm not kidding. I don't know where all that came from.
Vince, back to you. Who you taking at number 3? It's Evan Mobley, the big man out of USC, and everyone's talking about, the big man position is dead. Well, Evan Mobley is not your typical big man, okay? This guy can step out on the perimeter. He can switch ball screens. He puts a lid on the rim in the interior, and then offensively, he can handle the ball. He can pass. He's shown that he can step out and shoot the 3-ball a little bit. He's a lob threat, and he's just scratching the surface. You talk to executives, GMs, they say if we look back in 3-4 years, they won't be shocked if Evan Mobley is one of the best players to come out of this draft, and he fits that kind of unicorn big that we talk about time and time again, and would be a huge get for Cleveland at number 3 for them.
Zach, when you're looking at these 2 young cores, who are you more excited about between the Cavaliers and Charlotte?
No disrespect to the Hornets, but I'd have to go with the Cavs because Darius Garland is already an all-star, Jared Allen just made the all-star team, and Evan Mobley may end up being the best player of all 3 of them. I think I would actually bet on him being the best player in all 3 of them. He's a superstar in waiting. He's the most important foundational piece, so I'd go with Cleveland. Really exciting stuff going on in Cleveland.
But coming into the NBA, people were already giving him his flowers, as people thought of him as a top paint defender without even playing a single NBA minute. And to his credit, everybody who said that was right without a doubt in their mind, as he averaged almost 2 a game and blocked the 8th most shots in the NBA in his rookie season last year. And I know he just came off his rookie season, but let's review it anyways. Evan Mobley was everything people wanted and more. Coming into the power forward spot alongside Jared Allen and producing one of the best defensive front courts in the league. But for Mobley himself, he showed people his all-around game that people were expecting from him. 15 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and almost 2 blocks a game. A near identical stat sheet from his freshman year in college. Due to him coming off his rookie year, instead of any real talk about his past, unlike the others, let's just talk about how he can fully utilize his game into what people expect unicorns to be. He is already becoming a defensive unicorn, being able to guard people on the perimeter and paint, but his main way to get better at that is putting on weights, get some better technique, and of course, staying willing to keep doing so. His main thing that he'll have to improve on is offensive game and stretching out his shooting range. Last year, the Cavaliers, one of the worst offensive teams in the NBA when it comes to actual offensive efficiency, and I was hoping Evan Mobley would try to do a little bit more last year since it was already bad enough. But when he took games into his own hands, you could see that there was potential for a lot more. When he played the center spot against the Clippers earlier this season, he ended up scoring a career high of 30 points while terrorizing them in the paint, both with blocks and offensive rebounds. But now with Donovan Mitchell on the team, it's safe to say that those touches will be decreasing and we'll have to rely on assists from Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Where there's nothing wrong with, just obviously he's going to have to meet his full offensive potential in some other type of way. You'd like to see him be prioritizing that end, but hey, they want to win a championship, so just pray that he improves on that way to competing for a championship with this core.
With the second pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga University.
And lastly, we have the most hyped prospect in the 2022 NBA draft class and drafted second overall to the OKC Thunder, Chet Holmgren. And just like Bol Bol, eyes have been all over him since his high school days, doing things that no 7-footer should be able to do. This man was so good in high school that he was even able to cross up Stephen Curry at his own basketball camp. When it comes to American-made prospects, it's safe to say that Chet even toppled Bol Bol when it comes to skill set overall. And he took that skill set to college at Gonzaga, where he played in a top 20 strength of schedule and showed out almost every single game. In his lone college season, he averaged 14 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 4 blocks a game while shooting 60% from the field and nearly 40% from 3. Absolutely crazy numbers for him, and he did that all without any major injury concerns. In that season, he was 4th in the NCAA in blocks, led the NCAA in 2-point field goal percentage, led the NCAA in defensive win shares, and of course earned every major nomination and award there was in college basketball. It's safe to say that he was one of the better freshmen that we've seen in college basketball in the last 10 years. Due to that, he was drafted high and with very high hopes.
Issue with him. I love his game. I love his father video in his game. I love the excitement that he's going to bring to Oklahoma City. I get all of that, but I have to say this, Jalen. I have to say this, Shanae. Listen, with all of that being said, this is not the only great player that Sam Presti has drafted. We talk about Kevin Durant. We talk about Harden. We talk about Westbrook, Ibaka, Reggie Jackson. You acquired Paul George. You had Victor Oladipo. I mean, the list goes on and on. 0 championships. We know what Sam Presti brings to the table. He's an elite executive. We understand that. But when are we going to close the deal? I'm hoping Chet Holmgren can do that because somebody needs to in Oklahoma City. They always have great players.
And with the OKC Thunder, he could do whatever he wanted as the team is still in rebuild mode, or as I like to call it, deep rebuild mode. Legit, the perfect situation for any rookie. And with everyone waiting to see how he would do, he debuted in the Summer League, and in his time in the Summer League, he only amazed people more and more, breaking the blocks record in the Summer League with 6 and then threatening to do it again, scoring multiple 20-point games, and in all honesty, just making everybody look foolish. However, with the hype continuing to grow more and more, he unfortunately gets injured during a Drew League game due to LeBron James and looks like to be out for the whole entire season due to, again, a major concern for unicorns out there, his very slight frame. Now, according to Twitter, admitting to this makes me a Chet hater, but it's only valid criticism nonetheless. But when it comes down to these type of things, having a very slight frame player coming to the NBA who are considered unicorns, one of the things that will be quintessential to their growth is gaining strength. And the criticism will always come back more and more when you have plays like him getting bullied by Kenneth Lofton and others. I know it just makes one player out of many, but believe me, there are other many strong NBA players that can do the exact same thing if they really wanted to. But he has already shown himself to be a very capable player playing at any level possible. So we can expect a Blake Griffin or a Ben Simmons like rookie season as he spends all year getting his body where it needs to be to sustain a full 82 game season. Now, the common trend we have a new tall person with guard qualities is to call them immediately the next unicorn. And like I said in my last video on this topic, most of the unicorns in the NBA that actually pan out are actual players who weren't regarded as them coming into the league, but who turned into them naturally. People like Giannis, Embiid, Jokic, KD, etc. All of these guys are regarded as the best players in the league, and it's for good reason. But the same people we talked about today had the potential, at least from Twitter and scouts, to regard these guys as the same people who could turn into those type of guys, but again, they just didn't work out. But in all honesty, it takes a lot for these type of players to actually pan out into the people that you want them to be. But in the case with someone like Victor Wenbemyama coming into the league next year, he shouldn't be regarded as a unicorn. He should be regarded what he actually is, a generational talent. This is the same kid who some are calling a better prospect than LeBron James coming out of high school. The expectations are high enough, but adding a label which can only be considered to be a curse by this point by anyone who has it put on him coming into the draft will only do more bad than good, at least in my opinion. So just consider how you talk about him and other future prospects when you use these certain words and certain labels, because as you can see from this timeline, it never worked out for anyone all that well. But as always, I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something new, as my vision for this channel is to inform and, of course, entertain. Check out my social medias for the Inside Life of Alvini and other channel news. Check out my Twitch where I stream weekly. And lastly, if you want to talk to your boy, there is always my Discord server. Links are in the description. But with all that out of the way, this is your boy, Alvini Linguini, saying peace. Also, I hope Utah nor the Spurs get Wemby. Please just let it go to Charlotte or someone. I just want to see them get pissed off, please.